The purported leader of the Mexican mafia has been stabbed to death. Officials say 64-year-old Vanna Roman was attacked and stabbed by two other inmates.
On June 10th, 2020, at 10:44 in the morning, on the exercise yard at the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison at Corcoran, a 64-year-old inmate was standing in open ground. Two other inmates moved toward him. Each one was carrying an improvised stabbing weapon. The attack started without warning. Both men drove their weapons into him repeatedly, targeting his face. Guards saw what was happening and ordered them to stop. The two men did not stop. Responding staff moved in and put them in restraints. By then, it was already over. Medical personnel worked on the inmate on the yard. They kept working on him as they moved him to the prison's medical facility. His name was Vanna Roman, known on the streets of South Los Angeles and inside the California prison system as Popeye. He had been in the custody of the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation since 1985, serving life without parole. 35 years. The network he built outside those walls never stopped running. How a man serving life without parole managed to run more than a dozen street gangs across South Los Angeles from inside one of the most isolated prisons in California, and what eventually brought everything to a violent end on a yard.
Yeah, what did bring everything to a violent end in Corcoran State Prison, where I absolutely served time at. Welcome to another episode, everyone. Welcome to the Inside Story with me, Damian Porter. And as we just heard, this individual, Popeye Roman, was unalived brutally on a Corcoran State Prison yard by his own people. He was a shot caller, apparently, for a inmate. He was a shot caller for the mafia. At some point, something went terribly wrong. He ran 12 gangs, allegedly, purportedly, from Pelican Bay State Prison. Inside a high-security cell, he was still able to run 12 gangs on the street. He eventually made his daughter the boss, the mob boss, and allegedly his daughter then got people to carry out certain hits. Eventually, again, his life came to an abrupt and brutal end there on the Corcoran State Prison isolated yard.
In Corcoran. That is what this video is about. Drop a comment and tell us where in the world you are watching from. We want to see how far this story travels. The Harpies, also known in federal records as Harpies Dead End, claimed territory southwest of downtown Los Angeles and north of the University of Southern California. It was not the largest gang in Los Angeles, but under Vanna Roman, it became the street-level arm of something much larger. Vanna Roman joined the Harpies when he was young. He climbed through the ranks by committing acts of violence against rival gang members and against civilians. He eventually reached the top position, shot caller for a dozen street gangs across South Los Angeles. That meant he controlled who got taxed, who got hit, and who got left alone. Under his direction, the Harpies ran a systematic extortion operation against local businesses and launched regular attacks on rival gangs. They also targeted students at the University of Southern California. Street robberies and assaults that drew public attention to the area and eventually drew law enforcement attention to Roman himself. In the mid-1980s, Roman was arrested and prosecuted for murder. He was convicted of first-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. On January 11, 1985, the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation formally received Vanna Roman from Los Angeles County to begin carrying out that sentence. For most people convicted of a violent crime and sentenced to life without parole, that date marks the end of everything.
It most certainly marks the end of everything. Life without the possibility of parole. Once you receive that sort of sentence, you lose all hope. You can see that Popeye Roman was looking rather young in those pictures there, younger than he was. He was 64 years old when they ended up targeting him and taking him out not long ago. But he had been locked up since 1985 for a murder charge and had life without the possibility of parole. Nevertheless, he was able to run, again, 12 gangs from inside a prison. Now, of course, the Harpies are a well-known gang, and they mean business. I know this personally. I used to stay in their neighborhood. It was extremely troublesome. Oh man, to say the least.
The career is over. The influence is finished. They go in, and the world continues without them. Danny Roman went in. The world did not continue without him. Roman's first placement was at Folsom State Prison. In 1985, Folsom held a significant population of gang-affiliated inmates from Southern California, including several members of the Mexican Mafia, known in Spanish as La M. La M was not a street gang in the ordinary sense. It was a prison-based criminal syndicate whose influence reached into Latino street gangs across Southern California. Later, law enforcement accounts would describe it as a small organization, roughly 140 inducted members, with power far beyond its size. Money moved in from the streets, orders moved out from the prisons. To become a member, a carnal, a prospect needed a sponsor and needed to demonstrate a willingness to commit violence for the organization. Roman was brought up as a prospect, alongside a man named Rene Enriquez, known as Boxer. Enriquez would go on to become one of the organization's highest-ranking members before eventually cooperating with federal authorities and
Yes, before eventually cooperating with federal authorities, and that individual there, Enrique, has his own YouTube channel now. He turned coat, if you will, dropped out, and gave up information on the mafia. I believe, I suppose he still tells these sort of stories on his channel, on his YouTube channel, and where he's still giving up certain information, the ins and outs about the mafia, because he's totally dropped out. Of course, once you drop out one time, once you snitch or what have you, there's no returning, there's no coming back. So he's just all in now at this point.
leaving La Emma. His first-hand account of Roman's induction is the most detailed record available. According to Enriquez, two existing members, Raymond Alvarez, known as Beto, and Ernest Roybal, known as Kilroy, opposed Roman from the start. Their stated objection: Roman was not Mexican. In 1985, those two pushed for a formal rule requiring all future members to be of Mexican descent. Roman spent months in a state of political uncertainty.
Whoa. So he's not even of Mexican descent as this guy Popeye Roman. What is he then? Whatever he is, these two individuals apparently didn't like it and didn't like him simply based on the fact that he was not Mexican, apparently, and pushed for the organization to stipulate a rule that only Mexicans can be accepted into the organization. And while they're making this decision, while they're contemplating this, the hierarchy, he's lying in limbo. Is Popeye Romaine, is an individual locked up, life without the possibility of parole. Without the possibility of parole, your chances of going home are rather slim. And you don't have much to lose, but you're going to be there for the rest of your life. This is your place now. So if they say no, or if they agree with these two individuals that are against him and do not want him in the organization based on his ethnicity, then he's in trouble. He's no longer a part of the organization. Who knows what they will do on top of that, since he knows so much and everything, they might take him out. So he's sitting here lying in limbo for a couple of months while the decision comes down on whether or not he can be a part of the organization or not, even though he has been to this point. But now that these two are pushing this issue, now they have to make this decision. And if the decision comes in, obviously the decision was because he remained so until they took him out.
Enriquez watched him during that period and remembered the frustration visible on his face. Roman resolved the situation the only way La M's internal culture allows. He identified a man in the prison population, someone named Yesco from the San Fernando Valley, went into Yesco's cell with a large shank that prisoners call a bone crusher and attacked him.
Damn.
He drove the blade directly into Yesco's mouth.
Whoa.
The blow knocked out all of his teeth.
Damn.
Shortly after that, Roman was inducted. He was a carnal now.
Oh, yeah. He said, okay, I'll fix this. Y'all don't want to make this decision promptly. I'll help you make the decision. I'm a beast. Ran in the cell with a bone crusher, hit the individual in the mouth, and took all his teeth out of his mouth. Whoa.
Whatever objections Beto and Kilroy had raised were finished the moment Roman walked out of Yesko's cell. At some point after his induction, Roman was transferred to Pelican Bay State Prison, specifically to the Security Housing Unit, the SHU. The SHU at Pelican Bay was built for one purpose: precast concrete cells with no exterior window. 23 hours alone every day. 1 hour of recreation, also alone. All incoming and outgoing mail reviewed by staff, trained to identify gang-related coded language. All phone calls monitored and logged. The intent was informational isolation as much as physical containment. A gang leader's actual power is not in his body. It is in his ability to give orders. The walls hold the man. The silence is supposed to hold the organization. Roman had the same problem every imprisoned gang leader has. He could not call the shot caller directly. He could not write a plain text letter giving instructions. Every piece of communication, in or out, was being reviewed by people whose job was to find exactly that kind of content. His solution was the channel the system had the least control over. A visitor could enter the facility, sit across from him in the visiting room, talk for an hour, and leave. If the two people in that room had developed a shared language that sounded like family conversation, the guards were watching something they could not interpret. Roman needed someone on the outside he trusted completely. He chose his daughter. Vanna Roman was 9 years old when her father went to prison. She grew up in the years that followed with her father, accessible only through the visiting rooms of California correctional facilities. That is a specific kind of childhood, a relationship measured in supervised hours and drive times to remote locations, conducted inside rooms built for exactly this kind of managed contact.
Man, he cold. He went and got his daughter and then recruited her. She was 9 years old, they said, according to the narrator here. And this is Crimes Unearthed. Shout out to Crimes Unearthed. She was 9 years old, so that was in 1984, right, when he was arrested for this murder. Was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole in prison. His daughter was 9. She's all grown up now, and she's there in the visiting area communicating with him, supposedly, about some very dastardly stuff.
Laim maintained a firm rule about women. They were not to be involved in the organization's business. The organization had historically ordered the deaths of male members who shared business information with women. The rule was enforced. Danny Roman broke it by giving his own daughter authority that most male members of the organization would have struggled to claim. In the world she operated in, Vanna was known as Prima.
Prima? What does that mean? Y'all tell me in the comments. What does Prima mean? She the Black Widow? She a killer? Prima? Sounds crazy. That sounds a little sinister. Sounds like she might be up to something. So, okay. According to the narrator here, the organization does not really allow women in the organization. They do not share information with women. The women hold no power in the organization, and yet this individual Popeye has solicited his daughter to take over 12 gangs. And they don't even, he just said that men who have conveyed information about the organization to women have been unalived, have been taken out just for sharing this information with women. So they don't want women involved at all. And yet she's involved. Let's see if this is what led to him being took out in Corcoran.
Every month, she drove to Pelican Bay. Under the observation of guards, she and her father spoke in the language they had developed together.
So por eso es que a lo mejor te dijo que ya no te iba, se iba a ir un rato, porque se iba a ir a visitar a su esposo allá en Mexicali o Tijuana, porque estaba herido.
Dile
Oh, wow. So this is Rene Enriquez Uncensored. That's the channel, that's the individual we were just discussing that has his own YouTube channel. So this is coming from him, this clip, apparently. And you can see there, once this dude breaks it down, I'm sure, but you can see there if you're paying attention, I see exactly what's going on. Oh, wow.
Le platico yo de bien, ¿ok?
Sí, mecánico.
A la amiguita para que se... Porque I gotta do the shit, I gotta do the appeal a minute, but I gotta get there.
She came back with the instructions that would direct the organization for the next 30 days. Back in South Los Angeles, she passed those instructions to Manuel Valencia, Harpies' street-level shot caller from the city of Walnut, who managed the daily operations, assigning dealers, organizing collections, directing violence when it needed to be directed. Aaron Soto, 40 years old and Vianna's husband, also held a senior role in the network and kept the mechanism running between Vianna's monthly trips north. Federal wiretap recordings from the investigation make clear that Vianna was not a passive relay. She monitored the finances directly. She knew what the organization was owed and followed up when payments did not arrive on schedule. The intercepted calls recorded her telling members in pointed terms that their tax contributions were not adequate. She ordered physical beatings for members who came up short. In one documented case, she confiscated a member's car as collateral because he was behind on his payments. She was not running her father's errands. She was running his organization. The clearest available picture of how Roman communicated his most serious orders came from a recorded visit that federal investigators later analyzed in detail. During one of Vianna's monthly trips to Pelican Bay, Roman used the Spanish slang term soplan, a word for informants and people who cooperate with law enforcement. He paired it with a reference to a gang member who had died sometime before, a man named Johnny. The instruction he gave Vianna was that the person he was calling a soplan needed to go where Johnny is. To a guard sitting in that room, the sentence meant nothing. To Vianna and to Manuel Valencia, it was a death order. Someone had been designated an informant. That person was to be killed. Valencia would assign the Harpies members who would carry it out. Rene Enriquez, brought in later by the FBI and the Los Angeles Police Department to analyze surveillance material from the prison, identified a separate layer of Roman's communication method, one that required no words at all. In footage from the visiting room, Enriquez recognized Roman pulling his index finger in a slow, deliberate motion, like squeezing a trigger, while talking about a particular person. Without saying it, Roman was indicating that the person should be shot. The net.
Wow, that's cold. And then apparently Rene Enriquez is giving it all up. This is why individuals in the culture, whatever culture, gang culture, crime culture, mafia culture, do not like snitches, do not like rats. They used to play with their lives. These days, it's not the same, clearly, because a lot of these individuals are still around. Nevertheless, clearly, law enforcement had no idea what was going on inside of that visiting area. They were communicating, and how they were communicating was effective. If you did not know, if you did not have any inside knowledge, then you could not pass it on to law enforcement and they would be in the blind. They would not have known that Popeye Romaine allegedly was sitting there giving out a hit when he's waving his finger and waving his index finger as he's talking about someone. He's just putting his head here on his hand. He got his finger. He's waving his finger and he's waving it off. And apparently, according to the narration, Rene Enriquez, whatever the hell, gave it all up. They called him in, the FBI called him in to break down any communication that he could between these individuals to decipher what it is that they were doing and saying, and he was able to figure that part out. The FBI was not. They didn't know. He found the secondary communication and then gave it up to the law enforcement. I still want to know how this individual, old Popeye, ended up being taken out. But that's what often happens in any of these organizations. Even though you may be high-ranking, maybe the head of the organization even, and can still get taken out, and oftentimes do. It happens all the time. It's crazy. But I wonder why he got taken out.
Work Roman directed through these methods extended well beyond the Harpies' traditional territory. His standing in La M gave him authority over more than a dozen Latino street gangs across South Los Angeles, regardless of which neighborhood each one claimed. The Alameda Swap Meet sat in territory belonging to the 38th Street Gang, not the Harpies. But both gangs answered to Roman through La M. He sent Harpies members in to extort the vendors. Nobody in a position to object did, because nobody in a position to object worked for anyone except Roman. The financial engine was drug taxation, methamphetamine, cocaine, crack, heroin. Any distribution operating in Roman's territory paid a percentage to continue. Beyond drugs, the organization ran armed robberies, killed witnesses in active criminal cases, and settled internal drug debts the same way it settled most disputes. All of it ran on instructions passed through a woman visiting her father once a month. The scale of the operation eventually drew the attention of the Los Angeles High-Intensity Drug Trafficking Area Task Force, HIDTA, a joint effort between the Los Angeles Police Department and the Drug Enforcement Administration. The investigation ran for 2.5 years. Investigators placed informants inside the network, obtained wiretap authorizations, and conducted sustained physical surveillance on the leadership structure. The phone recordings were extensive. Conversations in which Vanna managed collections, issued threats against members, and relayed her father's instructions were captured in detail. And
that has been a downfall of many, so many. The communication, the talking on the phone, excuse me, we know that the government comes up with wiretaps that they're tapping in. They're watching podcasts, they're listening to the phone calls, they do this all of the time. I don't know why so many people involved in criminal activity speak on the phone about it. Particularly when you're under some sort of investigation and they are after you, they believe that you are some sort of leader, have rank in whichever organization, then they're going to want to cultivate evidence against you. I would just think one would be extra careful in that sort of situation.
Morning of December 6th, 2012, the task force executed coordinated arrests across the network. 18 defendants were taken into custody. 3 federal grand jury indictments were filed. The central indictment charged 29 defendants with 60 counts under the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. Prosecutors alleged that the Harpies had operated as a continuing criminal enterprise under Roman's direction.
Jeez.
Roman was not among the defendants. The decision was a practical one. He was already serving life without the possibility of parole. A federal conviction layered on top of an existing LWOP sentence changes nothing about where a man spends his remaining years. The government named him as an
LWOP sentence, that would be life without parole. A sentence of life without parole, life without the possibility of parole. Call it LOP, call it LWOP, call it the LWOP in prison. Not LOP, just call it the LWOP. Life without the possibility of parole. So they didn't even charge Popeye here when they came with this indictment after they had been watching them and gathering evidence for 2.5 years. They arrested some 64 members, apparently with very serious charges. Let's see, what ended up leading to his death? Was it that then? That they said he got everyone indicted? For some reason, they ended up taking him out on the Corcoran yard.
Indicted co-conspirator, documented on record as the person ultimately responsible for the enterprise, and directed its prosecution at the people who could actually be removed from circulation. Adding life sentences to a man already serving life is the legal equivalent of telling someone who has already missed their flight that they are also banned from the airport. The defendants who faced the most direct consequences were Vanna Roman and Manuel Valencia. Vanna, 37 years old at the time of her arrest, pleaded guilty on May 1st, 2014, to RICO violations, along with drug and weapons charges. Her plea agreement acknowledged that she had served as the link between her father's instructions and their execution on the street. Judge R. Gary Klausner of the United States District Court sentenced her to 15 years, 180 months. 7 days later, on May 7, 2014, Manuel Valencia entered a guilty plea to federal RICO charges. He acknowledged participating in a continuing criminal enterprise involving drug trafficking, supervising murder conspiracies, and ordering drive-by shootings against rival gang members. Judge Klausner sentenced him to 27 years. 25 of the 29 defendants charged in the RICO indictment entered guilty pleas before trial.
Dang, 29 years she got 15 years, the daughter. See? Poor little girl, man, poor baby. She was 9 years old when Pops left. Then you end up getting your children involved in this nonsense. Yes, she was grown by now and had the agency to make her own decisions, of course, but you're still under the influence of your father, one way or another. However it happened, she ended up getting involved. She pled guilty to this stuff and got 15 years. The other one got 29, though.
The street structure Roman had built over 3 decades was gone. His daughter was in federal prison. His shot caller was in for 27 years. His tax revenue had been cut off at the source. Roman remained at Pelican Bay, uncharged, serving nothing he was not already serving.
Okay.
Left with no remaining network to direct.
So what
The
happened?
collapse of the street network produced 2 immediate problems for Roman inside the prison system. In La M, both problems tend to produce the same outcome. The money had stopped. Roman's share of the street-level tax revenue, the income that flows from gang territory through intermediaries and into the prison system, dropped sharply after the federal indictments. In La M's internal economy, a carnal who cannot generate income is a carnal without leverage. The standing problem had been developing before the arrests. Vanna had communicated to her father that she was not being shown adequate respect by members on the street. In La M, this is not a personal grievance. It is a political signal that a carnal's authority is weakening and that other people have noticed. Roman's use of a woman as his central representative had been tolerated as long as his standing was unquestioned. Once the standing showed signs of deteriorating, the rule violation became a usable argument against him. There was also a documented pattern of Roman pressing disputes with other carnales in ways that generated lasting resentment. A kite had circulated through the prison network with Roman's signature on it, demanding $1,500 and 5 kilograms of drugs be paid to the Harpies after a man named Rocky was shot 5 or 6 times and stabbed more than 50 times. Roman had ruled in his own gang's favor and expected another carnal's territory to pay the bill without consulting them. People did not forget it. Recorded phone conversations between 2 La MA members, Daniel Peña and a man called Snoop, captured the tone of how Roman was being discussed by this point.
And everybody here is in the same agreement, and he's the only one. He just wants to, I don't know what he's doing, but it's just like, I'm going to have to get over there tomorrow, make sure he's not trying to do nothing over there.
He's a difficult, hard-hit guy.
So we know that firsthand.
Hey, that's why I had to come hard at him.
Yeah.
Rene Enriquez.
Yeah, the die is cast. The writing is on the wall for this individual. We see where this is going. The money is not flowing in anymore because these individuals have been arrested and they're gone, right? Even the daughter has 15 years. The other dude, 29, who knows how much time the rest of them individuals ended up getting. They don't have 2 months or 3 months. They're not getting back to the streets anytime soon to continue with the operation. So they realize the money is gone and gone for good. So, he's not really useful like that anymore. And then you couple in the fact that he used his daughter, and that's really against the rules, but they tolerated it, of course, because he's bringing in the money. So they tolerated this. But now, again, they have an excuse. He's not bringing in any money. The other members are discussing him, trying to make another gang pay, took the side of his own gang, selective politicking. Eventually, apparently they said he's no longer any good use to us. After being a shot caller for so long and putting in work and doing what he had to do, not doing too much wrong, apparently, at least, as far as snitching or what have you, but that was a big enough violation, apparently, having his daughter running the operations involved in everything, calling shots out there on the street. But even the daughter said that she's not out there getting enough respect. That was a red flag, a bad sign of things to come.
Cooperating with the government, recorded a video message for Roman and had law enforcement deliver it inside the prison. In it, Enriquez urged Roman to formally leave La M, to debrief, cooperate with authorities, and potentially help his daughter in the process. Roman watched the video. He stayed. In La M, a green light, a formal authorization to kill, means any Sureño with access to the target is both permitted and expected to act. There is no mechanism to contest it once issued. Roman had issued green lights himself. He understood precisely what it meant when one was being assembled against him. He stayed anyway. Roman was eventually transferred from Pelican Bay to the California Substance Abuse Treatment Facility and State Prison at Corcoran. On the morning of June 10, 2020, Roman was on the exercise yard at 10:44. Two men came at him. The first was Raul Alvarado, 47 years old, known as Spy, affiliated with the Lennox gang. According to a source familiar with prison gang structures who spoke to the Los Angeles Times, Alvarado was a confirmed member of the Mexican Mafia. He had been in the California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation since February 15, 1994, serving a life sentence for second-degree murder from Los Angeles County. The second attacker was Edward Cisneros, 31 years old. He had entered the California prison system on May 28, 2013, from San Bernardino County, serving life with the possibility of parole for attempted first-degree murder. One carnal, one Sureño. That combination, a confirmed member alongside a lower-ranking associate, is the pattern associated with a sanctioned La M operation. Both men used improvised stabbing weapons. 2 weapons were recovered at the scene. Roman was transported to the medical facility. He had sustained multiple severe stab wounds, concentrated on his face and upper body. At 11:11 in the morning, 27 minutes after the attack began, a physician declared him dead. Given the collapsed network, the dried-up revenue, the recorded contempt from fellow carnales, and the fact that a confirmed member was physically present in the attack, the evidence points in one direction. A carnal does not put hands on another carnal without authorization. Alvarado's presence on that yard is the signature at the bottom of the order. The methods Danny Roman used to run a criminal network from inside a maximum security prison did not end with him. La M still has approximately 140 inducted members, most of them in California's high-security facilities. The tax revenue still flows in from the streets. The enforcement structures that make leaving a death sentence are still in place. In 1985, a California court handed Roman a sentence designed to remove him from society permanently. It did not remove him from anything. It gave him an office. Vanna Roman completed her federal sentence and has since built a public presence as a content creator. Manuel Valencia has more than a decade remaining in federal prison. Roman's death did not come from the justice system. It came from the organization he gave 35 years to, on a concrete yard 200 miles from the street corner where his career started. The version of this story where the system eventually caught up with Roman would be a more reassuring one. That is not what happened. What finally stopped him, 35 years later, was the organization deciding he was no longer useful. There are people watching this right now who see what Roman built and see power. Some of them are young.
Oh, bad.
Some of them are being told that the structure he served is something worth giving years to. What the story shows is a 64-year-old man on a yard in Corcoran, killed by the organization he served, 27 minutes after it decided he was done. If you know someone who needs to see what that
Oh, man. All bad. Wow. Took him out. Hit him up all in the face right there in Corcoran in 2020. Clearly a death hit. You have situations where someone is just being DP'd, if you will, disciplined, and they're not to be killed. You're not trying to kill them, even if they end up dying in the process. Then you have situations where individuals are targeting you for death. The word, the hit is kill him, make sure he dies. Stab him repeatedly. Clearly this was a hit, but I don't know. It doesn't seem like, I don't know. It doesn't seem like he did anything wrong as far as snitching and this sort of stuff. Being a PDF file or abusing children or women, these sort of things that lead to death. It was more of, he was just no longer useful. He was already not of Mexican descent anyway. He skated through from the beginning when they were contemplating whether or not to even have him in an organization based on his ethnicity. They decided to go ahead and keep him in, apparently. But he had all of that hanging over his head. And then once he got his daughter involved, that was it. That's all they needed once he couldn't get the money. Once his daughter got arrested, he couldn't get the money, wasn't bringing in money anymore because now she's arrested. She's not running these operations on the street, these 12 different gangs, and all of these gangs are bringing in money. This is a lot of money that they no longer have access to. He's no longer useful. And you got your daughter involved. We let that go at first because she was making money and bringing in the money. Out there pushing your line for you. But once she didn't got caught up in a RICO and got locked up and the whole organization that went down that he was running anyway, his days were numbered. Oh, wow. And then some little sketchy politicking that he had going on himself where he's trying to make a certain gang pay his gang for whatever reason. He had individuals began having gripes with him and being disillusioned with his leadership, speaking about him behind his back. Well, it's only a matter of time after that. Wow, and they took him out. Let me know what you think in the comments. Stay safe and stay free, people.